Welcome to the Your Next Move podcast with Kimberly Brown. Today we have someone very special with us, James Simpson. I had told a story about him before, but I didn't say who he was. But the story was that I worked with a coach who asked me to write down my date of resignation at an event, and I didn't really believe it. I was like, yeah, okay, like I've done this a million times, but we're gonna do it. And this is the coach. And I ended up resigning from my corporate job within a week or so of the actual date that I put on this letter. So James is known for pushing entrepreneurs to the next level. And I'd say more specifically, pushing successful entrepreneurs to the next level of success that they didn't think was possible. So today I wanted him to come here. We're going to talk a little bit about me and my experience, a lot of things that I don't share. So we're going to see how that's going to go. And also just about when you need a coach and what is the difference between like regular business coaching and high performance coaching. So with that, that's the first question for you. So what is the difference between like regular coaching and high performance?
I would, first of all, let me say thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. And for everyone watching, thank you for supporting Kimberly. You are behind an amazing woman. So everything that you see with Kimberly, it's kind of like the preface of a book. So always stick around and come back for more of her podcast.
Oh, I like that.
Because you're really only going to get through the preface with her until we get deeper and deeper. It's like peeling an onion, but eventually, you're like, oh, okay, we here, and then you got to peel some more. But the beauty is, unlike an onion where there are tears, with Kimberly, it just gets better and better, and she's such a rich person and such an amazing person. And I had the privilege and honor of coaching her. So thank you for trusting me with that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And I will say the difference, my perception, and I'm careful when I say things from a place of the stage, the seat which I'm sitting in, because there are people that, they put the stock in what I say. So it is based on the perspective of 20 years as an entrepreneur and hiring business coaches on the front of my journey and throughout my journey. And then moving to high performance coaching, I have no other analogy but my favorite athlete, Michael Jordan, and thinking through what would have happened if Michael Jordan had another type of coach.
Okay.
High performance coaching, what I deem it as, is someone who goes in and they want to take the limits off.
Okay.
So a lot of coaches, if you think about a child, we hear things like terrible twos. Mm-hmm. Why does it have to be the terrible twos? Why does it have to be the kid is bad? Why can't it be an expansive mindset of they have so much energy, let's direct it? High performance coaching to me is about that. Okay. Business coaching follows traditional rules. It follows boundaries. There are barriers. There's set this, don't do this. This is the norm. Okay. High performance coaching trumps the norm and says there is no norm, there are no rules. It is, especially with me, I'm a very divergent thinker. We can solve this one of 6, 7, 800 ways. Got it. So that's the difference for me in high performance versus business coaching.
And I didn't mention earlier, but James's company is called Go Beyond Great. So I think that makes sense. That's basically the definition of you're going beyond what you thought was the greatest thing for yourself. You're getting that next level that you didn't think was possible. So what made you choose to do this specifically for entrepreneurs? Because me coming from the corporate world, we know that we have executive coaches and all these things, but specifically for entrepreneurs who are already kind of thinking out the box. Why them?
Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm a person that when I'm very competitive, I want to win it all. Uh-huh. And anything I do, I want to win. It doesn't matter. And win looks differently though. What it takes to put the W in the column is not always, we're not talking about who scored the most points. It's a lot of things in that process and depending on what season I'm in. So when I'm thinking through that and looking at that, I'm like, man, what can I do to help people? I started thinking and I said, well, I've been working with private sector. I've been working with $100 million, $150, $200 million portfolio companies that are talking about an IPO offering. So I went from there and I said, well, you know what? It gets stuffy in that room.
Always.
It gets really stuffy. The air is it's different. And I said, well, why can't I help other entrepreneurs? And I had another friend of mine, and she said, well, you've been helping me for years. And then I'd help other people, and I'd helped a dozen or so people privately. And I said, okay, well, let me start working with some entrepreneurs because I feel like they needed me more.
Okay.
And I don't want to say needed me because I don't say that from a place of arrogance at all, but they needed to hear and normalize what they perceived as failure.
Got it.
They need to know this is part of a journey. This is very, very normal.
Yeah.
This turbulence is normal.
Yeah.
If you know when you're flying and they're like, "Hey, it's okay." He's like, "We're gonna hit a rough patch of air." Yeah. And you hit that air pocket, the plane drops, and you're like, "Okay." After that happens on your 4th, 5th, 6th flight, you're still reading your book. You're not paying attention to anything. You didn't squeeze this tighten the seatbelt.
Nothing.
I wanted to be that for the entrepreneur. I wanted to be the pilot that said, you know what, this is normal. This turbulence is okay. And then to tell you it's okay to move about the cabin.
Got it. I love that analogy. Because I think in entrepreneurship, there are so many things that are scary. I think as a new entrepreneur, it hasn't even been a year yet for me. I am very type A. Extremely type A. So when it comes to failure, making mistakes, making the wrong pivot, it literally makes my stomach hurt. Literally, like, makes me feel like I will be sick. So it's always helpful to have someone who's kind of like, no, like this is normal. This is what's supposed to happen. So I want to switch gears just a teeny. And I'm going to ask a vulnerable question because I think people need to know. I think people always ask me more about myself. And as someone who's coaching me, it's always good to hear. So when you met me in January 2021 at the event, what did you feel was like the biggest growth opportunity for me? And how did you know you can help?
Two things. And anyone that is watching this, they're going to hear me talk about it all the time. But I'm going to talk about it specifically to you. Your vision and your belief.
Okay.
The one thing you did at High Performance Weekend was took notes. I don't know that I've seen too many people take notes. I didn't know if you were writing your next book or if you were just listening to what I was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, you were all over. I wish we had, that booklet here. You were all over that thing. You were turning it sideways. If I'm not mistaken, you had sticky notes.
I did, and colored pens.
You had colored pens. I didn't know if we were at Vacation Bible School or it was High Performance Weekend. But you were over there getting it in, and I'm like, what? I mean, I'm up on stage at my event trying to figure out what this person is doing. What is she doing over here? Are we drawing? What are we doing? Letters to family and friends, crafts. And it wasn't until I told you, we did some Q&A, and I asked some very specific questions, and it was when you moved on day 2, I believe it was, and I talked about vision.
Yeah.
And you came up at Q&A. You were a little nervous. It seemed like apprehensive. I'll say apprehensive. You asked your question, and so I would say belief was the first issue. You actually believing it could be done, and then could be done by you.
Yes.
And then vision. Once I think you started on the culmination of day 1, moving into day 2, there was something tapping, I think, at the brain to say, Kimberly, this is possible. I believe I can do this. And then day 2, it was, but I can't see it. And your background was corporate. Corporate is so... Everything's, you
start with the end in mind. You know what the end is.
And it's an automatic reverse engineer.
Yes.
And it's completely different. And well, not completely different. We start with the end in mind. It's just that rollback process is really different in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And in solopreneurship, we don't have the one way that we've done things for 50 years that we know that works, the human resources and departments and leads, and everyone says, hey, it goes this way. And we don't have a whole legal department that says that we do it this way because of this, or we've done it this way because we always done it this way. So when you stepped away, when you asked the question about vision and then you stepped away and I said, come back, that's the first time I saw a major shift.
Yeah. And let's just clarify, when I stepped away, I was also sobbing, y'all. And I don't be crying in public. I don't really believe in stuff like that. But I was like crying because James kind of held me to the carpet and really made me sit in understanding that running my own company was possible and that I had to believe it and create the vision. And it's okay to create it in the way that I want to, without having the confines of a corporation, of a company, of a leader, a manager, et cetera. And I think I love what you said because it's also in perfect alignment. I recorded an episode about like my journey, and I said several times, like, I would say the thing, like I'd have a loose vision, but I didn't believe that the vision was actually going to happen anyway. So I was like, we gonna see. But it wasn't until I paid taxes on my company. And I was like, oh, so I don't need to pay taxes if this is a game.
Exactly.
Like, we need to actually do this. So I love that there's that similarity there. So I would love to hear, what do you feel like are the similarities or scaling barriers that you see amongst like almost all the entrepreneurs who you work with?
Man, so people, watching this episode and people can hear me talk, and some people think, oh, he's a mindset coach. I am not, and I am not a mindset coach. I'm a high performance coach that understands business and understands mindset and understands that they are necessary. It is a necessary piece to a much larger puzzle. But in that, I think, at what you just said, the vision piece of we'll do our vision boards, we'll do our affirmations. Yeah, we'll have our parties. Yeah, it's good. Let's do it. And then rubber hits the road. And it really comes down to game day. And we're like, wait a second. What did I sign up for? And that's where we see, we've heard the expression, what is it? When things get tough, the tough get going. So it's like, we get to see what you're made of there. Yeah. And that's what I see, is I see entrepreneurs stop trusting themselves. They have instinctively lost their instincts. And if you sit with that for a second and think about it, they stop trusting themselves because they spend less time figuring out what is currently in them, and they spend more time figuring out what they don't have. And they're always looking at what they don't have and looking outward at the internet, social media. They have this, oh, I can't do this. So I think the biggest issue I see in scaling is that lack of instinct, the lack of just saying, you know what, let me just and not the lack of, but to trust what is there.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is one of the biggest things, and then going right back into the vision piece.
That makes sense. And I think that also ties into self-sabotage. Because I think one of the things at the top of this year that I talked to you about, I was like, I'm not sure if I can hear myself think anymore. I think I've done so many different things. I've coached with some of the best coaches over the past few years. I've read the books, I've done the things, and now I'm doing it on my own. And I'm like, I don't know what decision is right anymore. I'm like, am I doing this because James said it, or this person said it, or this person said it, or do I feel this? Do I do it this way? Do it that way? And that leads to me almost not knowing what to do. It's like my mind can be this like confuserizer when it's in there, and I can't get the idea out. And I think self-sabotage can be such a big thing when you can't get in tune with like your own instincts, or just in general in entrepreneurship when you're nervous and scaling and doing these things. How do you see self-sabotage manifest with your clients?
I mean, the number one way it shows up is procrastination. Yeah. That's the number one way. When it produces, if self-sabotage is a seed, procrastination is the fruit. And so if you find yourself, that doesn't mean every time you're procrastinating it's because of self-sabotage, but it is quite often the root to that fruit. And I mean, I will jump into we'll turn this into a live coaching session for you. Even in hearing you say, I don't trust myself, I know you trust yourself. Otherwise, and you're well educated, you're well versed, you're articulate, you're type A. That person doesn't put a resignation in at a 6-figure job with benefits on a track to keep going. You're on a really serious track. Yeah. There was no doubts in my mind, depending on whether you stayed there, had offers. I'm sure headhunters were getting ready to come out of the woodworks for you from some major players. So even knowing all that and hearing all that, you're still going, I can't think for myself. The fact is, everyone else at your previous jobs, the headhunters, they all knew you could think for yourself. It's not can't think for yourself, is you stop trusting that voice. And you can listen to my voice as the coach and listen to your voice. The important thing is when you're looking for a coach to find someone that is echoing, and know thyself is so important. So I never coach you in the way I coach traditional entrepreneurs, because you've been so corporately.
So that box he's putting me in, y'all?
I didn't put her in that box. She went to the little corporate store and bought the little corporate box with all the pretty little wrapping paper and put herself in there. I've been trying to tear that box up for a solid year. But and I'm not against corporate. I
No.
learned so much from corporate. Corporate framed a lot of my beliefs. I worked for a Fortune 50 company for a decade.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of great things with corporate, But there's a place of corporate speak where we have to understand I don't have to follow those rules.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw. I saw you creating more rules, more boundaries, more beliefs that you didn't need. So and kudos to you for taking the time to find your voice. I would say, if I'm giving you that coaching advice, I say trust your instincts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's something I'm honestly still learning. I think when people look at me, they assume that I've got it all together. I've got the P's and Q's. I'm a high achiever. I'm doing all the things. But I 100% struggle with that. Like trusting my instinct, trusting my gut, making sure that I'm making the right decision, making sure I have a plan B in case the plan A doesn't work, because failure and trying is a part of it. I'm someone who's got a B, C, D, and E, and so on and so forth. But I'm working on it. I'm like kind of loosening up those reins on myself. So one of my final questions for you is, what's the question that you wished that your clients asked you more?
Man, I wish my clients would be radically honest and extremely vulnerable in such a place that they would ask the one thing that caused them to make the biggest shift.
Can you give me an example of that?
An example of that would be, and I'll say this before I state the example. Most entrepreneurs are building a business and then building their life around that business.
Yes.
And I've made a huge shift from last year to this year to offerings to everything, to a point where everything in my business world revolves around my life.
Got it.
I am no longer doing anything that does not serve the highest purpose of my life. And if people don't understand that, it is not, we don't need to do business together.
Yeah.
I do business on the terms of my life. I do not live my life on the terms of my business.
Got it.
So that would have to be the foundational belief and the premise that we're not running ourselves ragged.
Yeah.
That allows us we can eradicate this idea of burnout because we're doing it for fun. It's a game, and it's around our actual life.
Got it.
So for you, if I'm saying, okay, what do I want them to ask me? I'm leaning into where that person is between their life, their business, and becoming that person. We're all trying to build a business.
Yeah.
We really just need to be building ourselves and going, how do I pull more out of me? We all have greatness in us, a level of greatness. So when I say go beyond greatness, to transcend to the other side of greatness. How do we get to whoever the GOAT is? They're the GOAT currently because we haven't seen anyone do better.
Yeah.
And the fact is, why can't we conceptualize it? Because we can't see it. Why can't we see it? Because we stopped dreaming as children. So it's to get people to start dreaming again and ask that really scary question, that what the heck is possible if I really, really do win? What really happens if I push my buddy won the World Series of Poker some years ago, and to hear someone say all in, to risk it all.
Yeah.
And wishing an entrepreneur would say, you know what? I'm going to push all the chips in on my belief, on my vision, on my instincts, on my gut, and be willing to risk. And we're not talking about, your safety, your family, your house. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about mentally. I'm talking about on a higher level, spiritually, emotionally, that bandwidth to say, you know what? I'm in. Here, push it to the middle of the table and let the chips fall.
That's where the magic happens. I feel like it's a different level of vulnerability that happens when you can say you're all in, that it forces you. And I think y'all have seen the episodes where Jessica Hurley has interviewed me, and one of the things you hear Jessica and I joke about all the time is I lack vulnerability because I don't like to talk about myself or my business. But I will say that entrepreneurship has been, I don't want to say it broke me down in a different way, but a little bit, I think, because when you bet on yourself in that way, just knowing that, okay, I am standing out on this ledge. It's like I feel like I'm standing on, like, imagine like an ocean, and there's one of those like poles, and I'm just standing on the daggone pole by myself. Like, that's what it feels like sometimes. And it's like, well, I better learn how to swim. I better chop this pole up and make a boat. Like, I better figure out what to do. But it feels so isolated, so lonely sometimes, because it's like I have to figure this out for myself.
Well, the beauty is you just said it. That was a shift for you, even to hear you say that. What you just described was being resourceful. And
yes.
Entrepreneurs come in, and people come into entrepreneurship looking for resources, not realizing they are the resource. They just have to become resourceful. And you just said, I'm on a pole, I don't know. And you looked at what you had, and you immediately gave me a couple of options of what to do with what you had. And that if there was nothing else over the last year, there's so many great things that I've seen happen with you. But if it was nothing more than to see you take what you currently have and make the best of it, completely different. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not an openly vulnerable person either. I'm a vulnerable person, not openly vulnerable, because I don't trust people, because people are visceral and they do what they do. And I come, I clap back a little differently.
Yes,
so,
you do.
So I try not to ever,
I
try not to go there, I was on a call the other day with I have 3 lawyers, and we're all talking, and they're like, do you want us to just end all this stuff? Because we can boom, boom. I was like, oh, we can do that? And I'm like, wait a second, just breathe. Like, people don't always deserve. So I work on really giving grace. And I don't say that from any pompous area, because there's a point in my life and still where I want grace. So we have to extend that to others, and we have to really extend that to ourselves.
Yeah, that's the hard part for me.
That's what I want to encourage you to do, is spend more time extending grace for yourself, because you know what? No one knows you don't have it all together but you. Yeah. And when they find out you don't have it all together, they love you more, because guess what? They realize you're human like me. Yeah. I don't have it all together.
Yeah. So. I think before I let you go, I want to share something else that you gave me recently. And I actually I didn't tell you, but I talked about in a Twitter chat room. And people loved it. I quoted you, though, so I gave you all the credit. But I was in this Twitter chat room, and we were talking about like your lifestyle and how that attaches to the world of work and what you do. And I said one of the most powerful exercises I've ever gotten from a coach was from you. And I shared when you asked me to create a resume for myself that did not include any work. And you told me, you're like, it can't include no accomplishments on here. Like, no accomplishments, no work, no schooling. And you were like, listen here, this resume looks like you're 14. Then we have some conversation to do about your life. If all you're going to think about is like work and schooling. But we want to see this be robust. We need to build a life for you, not just a business. And that hit me so hard. I was so nervous. I think I told you, I was like, if I ain't got nothing to write on this daggone paper, like Girl Scouts, like I wasn't sure, okay, cheerleading, but I actually had a full page, and it made me just think about the fullness of the life you can create. And I think as an entrepreneur, but also still closely holding on to my corporate career, I think that's something that I really appreciated you touching on, because I think we don't think about the lifestyle. We think about the work, and we think about the business, but we don't think about ourselves and how can we create, whether you're in a 9-to-5 job or whether you're in a business, how can you make everything work together? It's almost like when they talk about work-life balance, it's really work-life integration, but we should say life-work integration or life-business integration, making sure that we are happy first. Because I think now, if you're thinking about I remember when I first started my corporate job at that company we talked about, I very much felt the same as I do now, like standing on that pole in the middle of the ocean, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do because it felt like that's all I had. But when you think about your life, there's so many other things that also make up who you are and can bring joy to your life.
So and I know we're going to wrap, but I'd be remiss not to talk about that. So you felt the same at the beginning of your journey as you do 12 months later, but the difference is if we took your annual revenue when you were in corporate, we find a multiplier. Yeah. I think the multiplier is 2.5. Yeah. That was your revenue. And I wanted to say it took you 52 weeks. It took you 12 months to accumulate that amount of money in corporate. You did it around 9 months in business.
And that's not something I tell people, so this is an exclusive.
So, that's why I didn't draw no numbers. We both very private people, so
yes, But James got the screenshots when I looked at my account in December. I think it was like the first week of January. And my bookkeeper, I was like, Let me send it to James because I don't know if I'm reading the numbers right.
And I want y'all to know this is what happened. Like, I keep my phone on vibrate, but I'm gonna give you, a little illustrative. If you had it on, you hear the zoom, the little iPhone, so it was boom, and so it's screenshot, and it was OMG, OMG, OMG,
Yes.
WTF, OMG. And I'm like, okay, I can't respond yet because I keep seeing the bubbles pop up.
I didn't know. Like, how do I read these numbers?
And
Can I say that number?
And I think I sent a voice note back.
You did.
I was like, I am so. When we were at High Performance Weekend, that's what I saw. It wasn't about the numbers. It was that freedom. When you say what you said earlier, people, because I don't really care about people's opinion of me in that regard. But I got on a flight the other day. I was supposed to land here and run to Gucci, pick up some shoes. Mm-hmm. My guy texted me. He's like, hey, man, I don't know who pulled the shoes. I had them waiting for you. Somebody's got them. I said, it's fine. I'll get another pair. Call my city. We're out. He's like, oh, the only place to get them is in Miami or Tyson's Corner. I'm like, okay, where am I going? What's the quickest? Get up that morning, hop on a flight, boom, in Miami, go get shoes, flight, come back home.
Y'all hear this, right?
And there are people that'll be like, oh, well, that's this and that's it. It's like the freedom.
The freedom to be able to do it.
To be able to do. That is one of the biggest reasons I'm in business. That's one of the biggest reasons I want to be ultra wealthy, because not to go get shoes. It's the freedom for my daughter. It's the freedom for her children. It's the freedom for my great-great-grandchildren to make decisions differently instead of having decisions made for them. So I want to say that I want to celebrate you in that moment, the freedom to leave, or not even the freedom, the bravery to leave a corporate job that she was getting paid well. Some of y'all putting in y'all's 9-to-5 resignation, talking about it's hard to leave, and I ain't no shade. Y'all making $35,000. Not mad at that. I'm not mad at that.
Yes, not mad.
But that was taking her.
Everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah, but that was taking her a few months to get there. So you're walking away at that level. I'm not going to end this without celebrating you in the level of bravery and fortitude and focus amidst everything going on in your life. And everybody's like, oh, we all have life stuff. Yeah, and it shows up differently. But you showed up differently. And so I want to say that I'm proud of you. I want to say that one page, that exercise I gave you, that one page will eventually be your biography. So that will be an entire book on your life. And we won't just talk about, Kimberly was an excellent businesswoman. Kimberly was a phenomenal person. So I'm excited, and I'll be excited to read it.
I'm not going to say nothing else, y'all. So James, tell us where to find you. You just ended it perfectly.
Well, right now, because I've spent the last year going through rebranding, we're doing it all over again now. So the best place to find me is on Instagram at I am James Simpson. And my company is Go Beyond Great. And we will be having podcast shows and other things all launching this year. So you just kind of Google James Simpson, I am James Simpson, or you look up Go Beyond Great, and you'll be able to find us on YouTube and Instagram. And I said it, I want you to know I'm extremely, extremely, extremely proud of you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Well, I'm going to say this back to myself because I feel like James is just manifesting so much good, I think, in my business and my life, and I so appreciate it. May my own next move be my very best move. Have a great day, y'all. It's important that you position yourself as a leader through leading in whatever that body of work is.